Have you ever thought about life as it could be? You know, not just as we know it.
Hmm.
Today we're going deep into this world of artificial life
Yeah.
where you have these alien ecosystems and they're just thriving in simulations.
Yeah.
Digital organisms evolving right in front of us.
Mm.
We've got some research papers, code repositories,
Mm.
even visualizations. It really brings this stuff to life.
It's a fascinating field. It really uses computer science to explore the core principles of life.
And the research we're looking at today uses AI to speed that whole process up.
Yeah.
It's a method called ASL,
Okay.
Automated Search for Artificial Life.
Right.
And it uses those powerful AI foundation models, specifically vision language models, to find the most interesting and complex simulations.
It's a game changer. I mean, traditionally, researchers who design these ALife simulations, they've had to rely on intuition and a lot of trial and error.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Trying to create a virtual world where digital creatures learn to walk or swim or fly.
That sounds like it would take forever.
It does.
Yeah.
But ASL changes everything.
Really?
Researchers can now use AI to kind of do the heavy lifting.
Okay.
Sifting through millions of possibilities,
Wow.
guiding them toward simulations that have the most potential.
So it's not just making things easier, it's opening up possibilities that humans might never find on their own.
Exactly.
That's incredible. How does it actually work?
Well, there are three main ways that ASL uses foundation models to find these intriguing simulations.
Okay.
The first is called supervised target searching.
Okay.
Let's say a researcher is interested in a specific phenomenon, like a multicelled organism or a network of neurons.
Right.
With ASL, they can simply type in a text prompt describing their target,
Okay.
and the AI will search for simulations that visually match that description.
Wait a second. So you're saying I could tell the AI, show me a pepperoni pizza, and it would actually try to simulate that?
It might sound out there,
Yeah.
but that's exactly what they did.
Yeah.
In one of the papers, they use ASL to find simulations that match all kinds of prompts. For example, they tested it with a type of simulation called Lenia,
Okay.
and they were able to find matches for everything from a multicelled organism to, you guessed it,
Yeah.
a pepperoni pizza.
Wow.
They also tested it with Boids simulations
Okay.
and found things like a Fibonacci spiral in nature or a tree with roots.
This is blowing my mind.
Yeah,
The possibilities, I mean, they seem endless.
they do.
Could researchers use this to model real-world phenomena like how birds flock together or even how tumors grow?
That's precisely the kind of question this research raises. It
Sure.
really does open up a whole new world of possibilities.
Yeah.
For example, the researchers also experimented with particle life simulations.
Okay.
They used prompts like a diverse ecosystem of cells moving around and even cell division. The potential for scientific discovery is huge.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is that by using human language as a guide,
Yeah.
it almost blurs the lines between human creativity and AI.
That's a really great point.
Yeah,
So we've got these targeted searches based on what researchers are already interested in.
right.
What's the next way ASAL finds these simulations?
The next approach focuses on something called open-endedness. Think of it as the ability of a system to constantly generate new and surprising things. It's like how life on Earth keeps evolving into new forms. It's constantly changing, creating.
So it's like trying to capture that spark of creativity in a computer program, right?
Yeah.
That's the holy grail of ALife research, isn't it?
You got it. And what's really interesting is that ASL seems to be on the right track. The researchers used it to sift through tons of variations of Conway's Game of Life, a classic example of open-endedness.
Okay.
And guess what?
Okay, don't keep me in suspense. What did they find?
Conway's Game of Life ranked in the top 5% of simulations that ASL identified as being the most open-ended. This suggests that ASL is capable of recognizing the same qualities that researchers have long suspected make this game so fascinating.
Wow. So the AI is basically validating decades of ALife research.
Yeah.
Are there other examples of open-ended simulations that ASAL was able to discover?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They found other simulations that demonstrate what's called the edge of chaos,
Okay.
a balance between order and randomness that is thought to be essential for complex systems to arise.
Yeah.
It's that delicate balance
Yeah.
that allows for both stability and change, predictability and surprise.
Okay, so we've got targeted searches and open-ended searches. What's the third way that ASAL is being used to find these amazing simulations?
The third approach is called illumination. Think of it like exploring an uncharted planet for the first time.
Yeah.
It's about mapping out the full range of possibilities within a specific type of simulation environment, what researchers call a substrate.
Okay.
We're not just looking for a needle in a haystack. We're trying to understand the haystack itself.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's like saying, let's not just find the interesting things. Let's figure out what makes something interesting in the first place.
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
In the research, they used ASL to illuminate the Lenia and Boids substrates. They actually created these incredible visualizations called simulation atlases.
Wow.
These are like maps of the simulation landscapes where you can see clusters of similar simulations grouped together.
So what did they find on these maps? Any new and exciting life forms?
Oh, absolutely. In the Lenia atlas, they discovered previously unseen cells and bacteria organized by their shape and color. In the Boids atlas, they found classic flocking behavior alongside other fascinating patterns like snaking, grouping, and circling.
Wow.
It's mind-blowing to see how these complex patterns emerge from such simple rules.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder about the future of ASAL. If we keep mapping out these simulation landscapes and understanding the underlying principles, what else might we discover?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this research so exciting. But it's important to remember that ASAL isn't just about finding cool simulations.
Right.
The foundation models also help us measure and understand them in ways that we never could before.
Okay, that's really interesting. Tell me more about how ASL is being used to actually measure artificial life.
Well, for example, in the Boids simulations, they found that the range of possible settings, called the parameter space, is incredibly nonlinear.
Okay.
This means that even tiny tweaks to the settings can lead to drastically different outcomes in the simulation.
It sounds like navigating through a chaotic sea where the slightest change in course can land you on a completely different island.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
The researchers were able to use AI to quantify this chaos
Uh-huh.
and demonstrate how even trying to smoothly transition between two simulations results in unpredictability. Things get pretty messy in between.
Wow.
It highlights the chaotic nature of these complex systems.
So ASL is not only helping us find these simulations, it's also providing us with new tools to analyze them
Exactly.
in a way that we couldn't before.
Right. And the insights we can gain from this analysis are incredibly valuable. For example, they did some fascinating work with particle life,
Okay.
exploring an idea called more is different. This is a concept from physics, which suggests that complex behaviors only emerge when a system has enough individual components.
So you need a certain number of particles in this simulation for specific patterns to appear.
That's right. They used ASL to search for caterpillar patterns in particle life.
Okay.
And they discovered that these patterns only emerged when there were at least 1,000 particles present in the simulation. It's like having all the right ingredients to bake a cake. Too few, and all you have is a puddle of batter.
I love that analogy. It really helps to understand the concept. But how do researchers know which ingredients are the most important?
Well, that's another area where ASAL shines. They were able to use it to pinpoint which simulation settings have the biggest impact on the overall behavior. In the caterpillar example, they found that the strength of the interaction between green and yellow particles was the key factor.
So it's like identifying the most influential chefs in the kitchen, the ones whose decisions really determine how the dish turns out. What else can they do with this kind of analysis?
One of the most practical applications of this type of analysis is something called plateau detection. Basically, ASAL can tell researchers exactly when a simulation stops producing novelty, which can help them to optimize their experiments.
That's incredibly useful. It's like having a timer that tells you when your experiment has reached its peak and it's time to move on.
Exactly. And this is just scratching the surface of what we can do with ASAL. We're only limited by the capabilities of the AI models and the simulation environments. Imagine what we'll be able to do as those technologies continue to advance.
It's almost like we're just getting started.
You got it. The future of this field is incredibly exciting. But before we get too carried away, I want to bring up something we touched on earlier. The idea that we need AI that sees the world more like we do.
Right. You mentioned that the foundation model needs to align with human perspectives.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
It's a crucial point.
Okay.
The researchers compared several different foundation models, including CLA and DynaOV2, which are more sophisticated, and a simpler pixel-based model. They wanted to see which one was best at finding diverse simulations.
Okay, so what did they find? Which one worked best?
Well, it turns out that CLI and Dino V2, the more sophisticated models, were far better at finding simulations that align with human ideas of diversity. The simpler model, which just looked at pixels, wasn't as effective.
That makes sense. It's not just about any AI. It has to be AI that can understand complexity and novelty in a way that we humans find valuable and interesting.
Exactly. And that's what makes this research so groundbreaking. It's not just about automating the search for artificial life. It's about using AI to help us better understand what life itself might be.
Okay, wow. That was a lot to take in. We've covered so much ground already, and I'm feeling like we're only scratching the surface.
We are.
Yeah.
And there's much more to explore.
Oh,
We've only just begun to delve into the potential of ASAL and the world of artificial life.
okay. I'm ready to keep going.
Great. Let's dive back in.
Okay, I'm ready for more. Last we left off, we were discussing how ASL can actually help us measure artificial life. It's not just about pretty pictures anymore, is it?
It really isn't. It's giving us a new level of understanding. Think back to that idea of more is different that we were talking about.
Yeah.
ASAL could help us pinpoint exactly how many particles or cells or agents are needed before we start to see certain behaviors in a simulation. We could even change how those agents interact and observe how that impacts the entire system.
It's like we have this virtual laboratory where we can just play with the building blocks of life and watch what happens.
That's a great way to put it. And think about the implications for big questions like the origin of multicellular life
Yeah.
or even the development of intelligence.
Huh.
What if we could create simulations that allow us to test different evolutionary scenarios? We could see what conditions lead to those major leaps in complexity.
It's almost like we're rewinding the tape of life
Yeah,
and running different experiments to see how things might have turned out.
exactly. And this is where ASL's ability to measure artificial life becomes even more crucial. Remember those metrics we were talking about before, like the change in the CLIP embedding over time?
Right, that plateau detection thing?
Right.
Refresh my memory on how that works.
Of course. So by tracking how the CLIP embedding changes over time,
Mm.
we can learn a lot about how these simulated worlds evolve. We can see when a simulation reaches a stable state
Okay.
or when it enters a period of rapid innovation.
Uh,
We can even compare the complexity of different simulations and see which ones are more likely to generate truly novel behaviors.
That's fascinating. We're essentially giving these digital organisms a heartbeat so we can track their evolution and measure how alive they are. It makes you wonder, at what point does a simulation become so complex that we have to reconsider what it means to be alive at all?
You've hit on a very profound question,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something ASAL might actually help us answer. Remember, one of the goals of ALife research is to explore life as it could be, not just life as we already know it.
Mm-hmm.
So what if we find a simulation that displays all the hallmarks of life, self-replication, adaptation, and maybe even some basic form of intelligence? Could we really deny it the label of life just because it exists inside a computer?
Wow, that's a lot to think about. It's giving me chills.
Yeah.
It's like we're on the verge of discovering a whole new kingdom of life, a kingdom that exists beyond carbon and DNA as we know it.
It really is groundbreaking, and the philosophical implications are mind-boggling. If we can create life in a computer, what does that say about the nature of consciousness, or even the meaning of existence itself?
Okay, that's getting a little too deep for me right now. I want to go back to something else that really struck me about this research. The idea that we're using these foundation models to determine what's interesting or novel, isn't that a bit subjective?
It's a fair point, and one that researchers acknowledge. After all, what we find interesting is shaped by our own human perspectives. But these foundation models, they've been trained on vast amounts of human language and imagery. They've learned to identify patterns and make judgments that are aligned with human preferences and aesthetics.
So it's like they picked up on our human sense of wonder and our appreciation for the complexity of the natural world.
That's a great way to put it. And that's why they're so good at finding simulations that we as humans find interesting. They're looking for the same things that spark our curiosity and make us want to explore further.
So it's really a collaboration, a
Mm.
partnership between humans and machines in our quest to understand the fundamental principles of life.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe one day these AI systems will surprise us. Maybe they'll discover forms of artificial life that are so alien, so beyond our comprehension, that they completely challenge our definition of what life is.
Okay, you're definitely blowing my mind right now. Let's switch gears for a minute and talk about the future of ASAL. Where do we go from here?
As exciting as this research is, it's really just the beginning.
Yeah.
ASL is a powerful tool, but it's still limited by the capabilities of current AI models
Okay.
and the expressiveness of existing ALife substrates.
So we need better AIs and better simulations.
That's the essence of it.
Yeah.
Imagine using even more powerful foundation models, ones that can understand not only images, but also videos, sounds, and even those abstract relationships between different elements of a simulation.
So AIs that can truly experience these virtual worlds in all their richness and complexity.
Precisely. And imagine designing new substrates that are even more expressive, allowing for a wider range of behaviors and interactions. Substrates that capture the essence of biological systems, or even go beyond the laws of physics as we know them.
So we're not just simulating life as it is, we're creating entire universes with their own unique rules.
What?
That's incredible.
That's the potential. With these advancements, who knows what kinds of artificial life we might find?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll discover simulations that evolve complex languages, develop intricate social structures, or even achieve a level of consciousness that rivals our own.
This is getting pretty wild, but wouldn't all of this raise some serious ethical questions? If we're creating these digital organisms that potentially have intelligence or consciousness, don't we have a moral obligation to them?
That's an important question that we'll need to address as this research progresses.
Yeah.
And it's not just a theoretical debate. As AI becomes more powerful and widespread, these questions will have real-world implications for how we design and interact with these systems.
It's definitely a lot to consider. But one thing is for sure, the future of artificial life is going to be full of surprises.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe these simulations will even teach us something about ourselves, about the nature of life itself, and our place in the vastness of the cosmos.
Okay, that's a pretty profound thought. I think I need a moment to process all of this. It's been an incredible journey so far. Where do we go from here? Okay, I think I've caught my breath. We've covered so much ground already, but I'm ready for more.
Great. We've talked about how ASAL finds these fascinating simulations and how it's giving us new ways to measure artificial life. But I think the most exciting aspect is how this research could help us understand life itself, not just simulated life.
That's what really caught my attention too. But how can, looking at simulations inside a computer tell us something fundamental about life in the real world?
Well, it's not about finding all the answers in a computer program. It's about using ASL to explore new ideas
Okay.
and challenge our current understanding.
Yeah.
What if, for example, we designed a substrate specifically to simulate the very emergence of life?
Okay.
We could have ASL explore a virtual primordial soup or a network of interacting chemicals, maybe even something completely alien that we haven't even imagined yet.
I'm picturing this digital petri dish
Yeah.
filled with these virtual molecules bouncing around, bumping into each other. What happens next?
So imagine ASL, guided by its foundation model, starts to identify patterns within this chaos.
Okay.
Maybe it discovers a group of molecules that can replicate themselves,
Yeah.
or a set of chemical reactions that create a stable source of energy. It's like witnessing the spark of life ignite right there in the simulation.
That's incredible. So by analyzing exactly how life emerges in these different simulated environments, we could gain insight into the basic principles that govern life itself, both in the real world and in these virtual worlds.
Precisely. It's almost like we're reverse engineering the universe.
Yeah.
And the most exciting part is that we're not limited to simulating life as we know it.
Right.
We can explore alternative biochemistries, different ways that organisms might harness energy, even universes with completely different laws of physics.
Wow, it's like we're not just simulating life, we're creating entirely new universes where life could exist in ways we can barely imagine. It's both exhilarating and a bit terrifying to think that we might create something that surpasses our own understanding.
It certainly challenges our place in the cosmos, but it also highlights the power of human ingenuity. We're creating tools that allow us to probe the deepest mysteries of the universe.
It's amazing to think that all of this is possible thanks to the convergence of artificial life and artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Two fields that on the surface seem totally different.
It's a perfect example of how combining different disciplines can lead to truly groundbreaking discoveries. And who knows, maybe someday artificial life will become so advanced that it blurs the lines between what's real and what's virtual.
Okay, now you're just messing with me. But this has been an incredible journey. We've explored the cutting edge of artificial life research, grappled with some pretty profound philosophical questions, and even caught a glimpse of a future where the lines between life and technology become increasingly blurred.
It's been a fascinating conversation, and I hope that you, dear listener, feel inspired to delve deeper into the world of ASL and artificial life.
Yes, definitely check out the links we've included in the show notes. Explore the research papers, maybe even try your hand at creating your own simulations. Who knows, you might be the one to make the next big breakthrough in this exciting field.
Remember, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
The quest to understand artificial life is an ongoing adventure full of possibilities and challenges.
So stay curious and keep exploring. You never know what wonders you might uncover. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.